There we go. Welcome back. Sorry for the minor delay. As with all things I seem to be involved in, we have some technical difficulties and cards on the table for the status of this stream. I am expecting a delivery around this time, so there may be a moment where I have to pop off for a couple of minutes. But when this goes out live, it'll be edited, and you won't see any of that. So if you're catching the recording, please don't worry. But as a kind of accidental segue, we are looking at the purpose, the relevance, the significance of context-driven behaviours and the proper framing for understanding the way in which somebody is behaving and the why in which somebody is behaving. It is arguably one of, if not the most important thing that you can start looking at when you start to try and observe and understand the behavior and the interactions of human beings. Without the understanding of that context, it's like not having the right filtration system to properly understand the language that's being communicated. For example, I'm stood up today. So I will be moving differently because of the way my table is changed and the need to access my front door very quickly. That will affect how I move. That will affect how I interact. That will affect how I communicate, and so on and so on. Without the acknowledgement of these important changes, it's really quite an uphill struggle to properly, accurately understand why anybody is doing what it is that they're doing in the first place. Wouldn't you say, Bob?
It's usually environment driven. And a good analogy is just got a new computer, so I'm playing around with all the toys on it, and I'm a bit of a technophobe. So I've just discovered how you take the background out of photographs.
Nice.
So just imagine
Nice.
if you're working without context, you're working with a photo without its background in place.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that struck me then, that metaphor. That really properly went home. What a great way to illustrate the purpose of what it is that we're doing. The thing that comes up as part of the research is this notion that behavior isn't static. It's from an understanding perspective, it's definitively not binary, but from the communication angle, it's not static. It is a moving thing. And so if it is that you are fond of, I'm not picking on a model, I'm just plucking one out of the air. If you're fond of following a baseline, right? Most people are aware of the buzzword. Most people misunderstand its application, in my humble opinion. But with this in mind, because of these mobile changes, the second that the situation and the context bends in some way, it is a new baseline that's required. You can have multiple baselines for any one given situation that you're in, any one given location that you're in, and these can change time and time and time again. This is why I'm of the personal opinion that if you are to say, I'm going to try and understand, human behavior, whether it be verbal or non-verbal, both, it is not easy. It is not a simple equation to follow, and there are equations that are relevant in this area. But I'll come to you on this, Bob, for the Lewin's insight. You've got more experience with Lewin's work than I do. Just give us a bit of insight on his equation.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's the behavioural equation. It's been around since the 1930s, I think, or thereabouts. And it's behaviour equals how a person functions in an environment. And I've got, if we've got time, then I've got a great example of how that works in practice, and an example of it, and that is John de Mendes. I remember his middle name, John something de Mendes. And we had the atrocities in the UK, 7/7, where buses were blowing up and everything. And this guy became a suspect for whatever reason, I can't remember now, but he was being followed by surveillance, and he was followed onto a bus, so that was the environment, and he was behaving naturally. Then he got off on a bus at a railway station, which was pretty crowded outside, and then suddenly jumped back onto another bus, went to another tube station. So, and then his behaviour became a little bit more erratic. He got into the station, and I think, if I remember rightly, he actually went through without paying.
Right.
I think that's what happened, and he ended up getting shot on the train by armed police because of his behaviours. But then later it was worked out that the first station he'd gone to, for whatever reason, I think it might have been that trains were delayed, that he couldn't wait because he had to get somewhere, so he jumped back on the bus. But so it's, how people function in the environment and how you observe it and the conclusions that you can take from observing it. And if I can, just another example
Please.
of that from this week is, you look at the videos for Trump when he's talking with Keir Starmer by his side, and then mirror it with the interview that he gave to a friendly News Fox presenter when he got back, and they're two completely different people.
Yeah.
So unless he was completely dosed up and didn't know what he was doing when he was in the UK, his behaviour to that behaviour are markedly different in the way that he speaks and everything, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it feels like even uttering a name needs to be brought with some kind of disclaimer. There's no claim being made other than the observation that there are changes. Right?
Yeah.
That's it. There are changes in the behavior, and I really don't think that can be refuted. It would be the same with anyone. Were you to follow them closely, it's just you got to take the prominent and easily accessible examples where you can get them.
Sure.
One of the things that strikes me in this area, and mostly because I'm a big fan of cognitive biases, in the sense that I like reading about them, I like researching them, I like testing my own biases when they come up. And if you think you don't have one out there, dear listener, that's a bias. Right, we're all prone to them, and we're all influenced by them in some way. It is our job as observers of behavior to do our best to mitigate those effects when they come up, so we can be approaching the information for exactly what it is attempting to communicate to us. One of the ones in this area is it's just called the framing effect. I'm going to try and pronounce the name Tversky. It's by a fella called Tversky, in that way, and it's essentially the look at how a single piece of behaviour, or in the case of the bias, a single piece of information, can be perceived in a multitude of different ways when there is differing situations around it. And not to kind of toot your horn, but I think you found one of the best examples of this in the stun gun photo shoot that you showed on one of your courses. And for those of you that don't know, it is a video that's out there. I'm sure if you Google the word stun gun photo shoot, it will come up. But if you were to just watch those photos, those expressions in mind, just as the expressions, I mean, I've kind of primed you horribly by telling you what it is ahead of time, but if you watch those expressions come up, you would be inclined to think that there were different stigma, because there's different thoughts, different feelings, different movements. Some are excited, some are terrified, some are in pain, some are shaking, some are still, which communicates different things. And so we, with that framing effect in mind, go, okay, differing feelings must mean differing situations, when really all we're looking at is the same situation having differing effects on people. And that's one of the trade-offs of the framing effect in that area, which is closely related to confirmation biases, in that if you pick any figure of any kind of prominence that you like, doesn't have to be famous, doesn't have to be political, just if you follow them spiritually, intellectually, whatever, and then they say something, you are more inclined to accept that based on the frame of your connection to them. There's nothing wrong with following them at all. It's just accepting that you need to critically review the frame for the information as it's being deployed to you. And it's the same for behavior in those moments. So the question then becomes, why do you think, or at least in your experience, why do you think people are really quite bad at determining the frame or the context for a particular situation, if acknowledging it at all?
Yes, to do with the fact that we, unlike our predecessors going back in time, we are much more comfortable in our environments. And so we go on autopilot. I think it's as simple as that. We don't. I was doing something this week, and one of the things I say is that we're going to show you a video. Now just look at it, but don't just look, because everyone looks, but not everyone sees. And everyone can listen, but not everyone will hear. And that's what you want to become, someone who sees and hears, and that doesn't just look and listen.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Because when you think about it, and this is maybe showing the fact that I do tend to think about this stuff way too much. The only time as a human being we are not doing some combination of being, thinking, feeling, or doing is when we're dead. So the fact that during conversation there is an active neglect of some streams of information is only going to do your understanding of it a complete disservice. That's the challenge of that. And
it's what we do, Ben. We wake people up.
Yeah.
Because all these things are happening, and all these things are being noted by your unconscious mind and your self-protective systems that you've created over time to protect yourself. So you're looking for things that you don't even consciously acknowledge, that you're looking at size, etc., how people are dressed, how they're behaving. And this all goes on at a subconscious level, and unless something actually comes into line that is new, or I don't know that, and then we don't wake up. So that's what we do, is with the work we do, is we have techniques, words or behaviours that help people wake up, wake their brain up, and become more in tune and not on autopilot.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a great point. Autopilot is okay in certain areas when you're understanding or aiming to understand human behavior. It's never really going to be acceptable or okay to be able to do. It's just acknowledging to yourself that you're going to miss something. One of the games that I was about to say used to play, still play with the people in my classes, is we'll do like a critical thinking exercise around behavior. And I know critical thinking isn't the most sexy sounding topic in the world, but it's infinitely important for how we process the information that we observe. And it will be games like, okay, you're in a situation that you can fill in, you being the proverbial student and anyone else listening. There is a 6'5" male in front of you, built like a brick. You know what? He's stern look and he's walking towards you. Give me 3 situations where you are comfortable with that. That's perfectly okay. And 3 situations where you're terrified, and 3 situations that don't fit either comfortable or terrified. And all we're looking to do with games like this is understand that the frame has one of the most important filters that you can see behavior through. And that's why so many people are angered by propagandist material. It's playing with the frame of behavior or data or interaction. One of the popular things in that area was Elizabeth Loftus's classic car crash experiment with witness testimony and the fallibility of memory. For those that don't know, here's a crash course. Her and a team would basically say to people what did you witness during the incident? What did you witness during the accident? What did you witness during the crash? What did you witness during the fender bender? And change the frame for the understanding of the particular incident in that moment. And it would affect the information that was pulled back as a result. And because of the fallibility of memory, it would oftentimes replace, or for the witnesses, they would believe that they saw these things that didn't actually happen because the frame in that particular situation was changed, which is why it's such a delicate and important thing to be able to do, especially were you to move towards the notion of predicting behavior. And we're not getting into the realms of, supernatural or anything like that. It is how much information can you gather in order to make a likely inference about what is to come as a result. In the same way that if I continue to put one foot in front of the other, I predict that I will keep walking as long as there is a floor in front of me. These kinds of situations.
One touch on here, and going back to the Trump videos that I talked about, and you're right, we're not talking about Trump as a person, we're just talking about the change in the behaviours. That's what I was using it for.
Yeah.
But what comes into that, and something which is why what we do is so important, it isn't about what the behaviours that people are showing, it's why. And so we come into the realms of motive. And the only difference between those two videos I talked about is that his motives in each of them were probably different. And that affected his behaviour as much as the environment, and it all comes in one package. You can't separate them. And that's why when we get these people called the behaviour panel or whatever they call themselves are wrong. If they were doing that properly, they'd look at 4 or 5 different videos from different types of scenarios, because we behave. One thing we want to do is we have a motive, and that motive is usually to fit in to the scenario we're in. And so the environment we're in is very important. We behave different in different environments. And so to do a video of just one environment and say this is a behavioural assessment of what this person is wrong. What you're assessing is how that person is behaving at that moment in that environment. They may behave totally different in a different environment, as evidenced again by the Trump videos.
Yeah. I mean,
and that I picked up on, and it's to do with blink rate, because blink rate, as we know, is something you can't control and can be evidence of someone's mental state at that moment. There's 2 videos that I found. I found a video that I saw it on the news, and it's Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, responding to a question about the, I can't think of his name, Mendelssohn.
Okay.
And her eye rate, her eye blink rate is off the scale. And so I thought, is that her normally?
Yeah.
So I then went and saw her doing an interview where she was obviously comfortable. She was getting her points across, and she hardly blinked in the same period of time. I think it was about 30 seconds. We went from about 30 to 40 blinks to 2. And so that's the environment.
Yeah.
It's the environment. Maybe, I don't know, the context. She was coming out of a door when someone, or she's standing in front of a door when someone's speaking to her. So maybe she's just come out from a meeting. She's having to think on the fly to answer this question, which is obviously an important question for her to get right, because it's something they can use as a beating block for the government.
Yeah.
And the difference between them is stark.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're 2 different people. It just means that they're people behaving as they are in an environment.
Yeah. I mean, it baffles me why it's left out of so many discussions. Well, no, that's not fair. I know why it's left out of so many discussions, because it's not intellectually sexy enough to go, I've seen this, therefore that fine. But the thing that popped into my head then was the experiments from Milgram, and then later from Zimbardo, around control in differing situations, and the exploratory concept of what it is that a uniform does. Try it on the street. Because there's the classic Milgram experiment of the white coat and the electrical conductivity. But is it just the authority of the white coat and the clipboard, or is it the fact that it's in a lab? And the walk to it, does that frame the journey? If they'd gone towards the same electrical setup but in the middle of a McDonald's or something like that, would it have had the same effect? This is the importance of the framing of behavior. One of the points of curiosity that I don't want people to step over is something that you mentioned about the Kemi Badenoch stuff. Was, okay, I've seen it in this situation, I wonder if it's happened elsewhere. That's such a go back to our previous episode on curiosity. That is such an important question to what's the word, nurture in how you act and how you think about these types of things, because you can ask that further in terms of, well, I wonder if she's been caught unawares by other random questions at her doorstep. I wonder if she's been caught unawares by other random questions during PM question time, or on the news, or on arranged interviews, or any other available video sources or profilable data that is available for you to develop a full behavioral profile. This is what Kurt Lewin was talking about. This is what we've spoken about before when it comes to a personal behavioral repertoire. That observation of Kemi Badenoch doing the massive blinking is a great example for that situation. But if you don't go any further, you would have to be honest in your assessment, where you go, well, it could be this, but it could be this, 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 depending upon how many other variables there are to consider as part of the question that's driving you at that moment. You can iron them down, deductive filtering, if you have more of a personal behavioral repertoire with which to pull from. Like, if you have more data of how Kemi's acted in different interviews, where she is the focus, where she isn't the focus, where she's in a group, where she's by herself, and so on and so forth, you can pool those interactions further. I didn't want that to go amiss. That was such an important thing that you just said.
First 30 seconds, minute, you're gaining an impression of them, and you're identifying things that they seem to do that are part of their unique repertoire of who they are. But you don't know that. So that's your starting point. And then you carry on with that conversation. If you're having a conversation with them, you look and observe and see and hear whether those behaviours are repeated.
Yeah.
And it's only after maybe 5 minutes, maybe as short as that, you can get a good idea of, on that day, in that moment, in that environment, what that person's behavioural repertoire is. That doesn't mean that is what they do in every situation. It just means in that moment. And so that means that allows you to, in that environment at that time, gauge when there are moves away from it and make more than chance decisions on what that behaviour might mean.
Agreed, and I've just noticed as well. Sorry, that Facebook was very slow to update a couple of the comments that have come in. Pascal's here. Pascal says that the PBR, the personal behavioural repertoire, is better as it tends to get rid of the biases that other techniques can create.
Sure.
Interesting. I like that. I like that. And just Pascal is saying that when Bob is talking, there's an echoing sound. Just bear with us today, mate. We're dealing with some tech issues on all sides. Please rest assured that when the pretty stream goes out in a couple of hours, there will be no echo sound, because I can fix it in post, as they say. I'm not quite the full scale Hollywood production, but Pascal makes a good point in terms of the PBR, getting rid of biases. Here's an example. Speaking of framing, when I say you, I don't mean specifically you, Bob. I mean you in general. You suspect a child of yours, not just a random child, a son or daughter, of lying to you about something, and it's an important something. Let's say they've stolen money from you. They've stolen cash from you, and you suspect that they are lying about it, and it enrages you. You feel like you've got proof in those situations. Asking the question of how you would best tackle that. That's the navigation of framing in that particular situation. There are those that might go, well, I would just ask them and confront them. Okay, that's an option, but you risk damaging your relationship.
Sure.
All right, well, I'll ask other people. Great, that's a start. You should still talk to the original person to find out what this is the framing in question, the curiosity that needs to be nurtured, and it will inform you how much information you have regarding your kid's personal behavioral repertoire, or anyone else that might have had possible access to wherever it is that you store your money. Right? That's maybe an easily accessible everyday use of the framing effect. It's stopping to consider what the best approach is in those moments. It's the value of a pause. And that's where you assess a frame. That's where you evaluate how it is that you're going to approach the situation. The more you practice that, the more you do, as Viktor Frankl would speak about, between the 2 points, there is a space. Making that space in the middle as wide as you possibly can, so you can think.
Yeah,
that's how you assess.
TV show called Blue Lights, which is about police service in Northern Ireland. And there's an old cop and a young cop, and the young cop has got the big door battering ram, and he's just about to smash the door down. And the old cop says to him, "Take a beat, think about it. Don't just focus on breaking the door. Think to yourself, what is going to be behind the door?" And I just think that says it all. And it would be remiss to do that without actually mentioning something that, if you're doing behaviour analysis, you have to know and have to be aware of, and that's the OODA loop, John Boyd, which is, rather than just observing, deciding and taking action, you build in exactly what you're talking about, Ben. You build in that space with evaluation. I've seen that, but I need to just think about it in the context of the environment we're in and what's going on. What does it mean? And that will help you reduce the opportunity to make bad decisions. And that orientation might say to you, well, it's just a one-off thing. Maybe I need to see if it's going to continue.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree with that anymore. I think my final thoughts on this will be that behavior is never random. There might be a motivation that somebody is not aware of, that they're moving towards because of whatever psychological reason, but behavior is never random. It is a child of the context that you're in. So the more you can understand that particular context, that particular frame that you're in, it's only going to set you up for an accurate assessment, providing you've gone through all of the other requirements for skill development in that area, but it's only going to set you up for a more accurate understanding of the behavior. And for those watching this podcast, I invite you to behaviorally assess me. I've been different, mate. I'm not the best person to assess it. I'll be biased, but I've been moving differently, thinking different things, maybe talking in a different way, maybe gesturing in a different way. Can you assess my motivations, my thoughts that I'm not announcing in this particular moment? Or do you need to seek more information? Let us know in the comments when this goes out. Bob, how about you? What are your final thoughts, sir?
Well, my final thoughts are just something that you just said, and it's I couldn't agree anymore. Now, that's a vagary of English language. I couldn't agree. Now, if you're not really switched on, or if your brain, if you've got bias, if I had bias against you, I would not hear those last words. I'd just hear, I can't agree. So listen. Don't just listen, hear.
Beautiful.
Don't just look, see.
Beautiful.
And OODA, John Boyd. I don't think there is any actual academic paper for it, because I think he was in the 40s, and I think it was just done on that. So I don't think there is any academical, but
there's a good book on it. Yeah, there's a good book on it available called Beyond OODA. The author's name escapes me at the moment, but the book is called Beyond OODA. So check that out, guys. And with that in mind, we'll love you and leave you. And we'll see you next time. All right, folks.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.